They were gathered, every warrior and mage that they could muster. The ground shook at their approaching forces. Brent silently prayed. This was it, the dreaded day, Ragnarök. Welcome to Mythical Phylogeny Adventures. I'm your guide, Jason. For the end of the year, why don't we speak about Ragnarök? It is the end of the world as we know it. That is what Ragnarök means. It comes from a prophecy in Norse mythology. It isn't just one solitary event, but a string of events that culminates in reshaping the whole Norse pantheon, world, and determines a new future. A long winter will come that lasts as long as 3. One colder than any before, with fiercer winds will set in. Morals will dissolve as starvation spreads. An age of swords and axes will begin. In the sky, the 2 wolves, Skoll and Hati, who have been hunting the sun and the moon since ancient times, will finally catch their prey. Húrim, leader of the Jotun, the frost giants, will march towards Asgard, and the Aesir, the gods within, his large shield protecting his body. As the fire giant Surtur and his army advances from the south, Heimdall will raise his horn, Jollahorn, and blows, alerting of the invasion. The sound is to be heard across the whole world, in every corner. The sound will cause Yggdrasil, the world tree, to shudder. Behind the marching armies, the rainbow bridge, the Bifrost, will crumble. There will be no retreating. Jormungandr will pull his tail from his mouth, freeing himself as the ocean shakes. His actions will free the ship known as Naglfar. It is a ship made from the finger and toenails of the dead, and holds within it an army of monsters and giants. Fenrir shall break free of Gleipnir, his enchanted bindings, and devour the sun, spreading fire across the world. The halls of Valhalla will open, and the Einherjar, the valiant warriors who fell in battle before being collected by the Valkyrie. Since death, they have been training and perfecting their skills in battle. Once foes and enemies in life, they are united in the end. Fenrir will devour Odin, but is then slain by Vidar. Meanwhile, Thor will slay Jormungandr, take 9 steps, and then die from the serpent's venom. The goddess Freyr will battle Surtur. The one-handed god Tyr will die against Gorm, another wolf who may have been another name for Fenrir. Heimdall and Loki will slay each other. Yeah, the trickster Loki sided with the giants against the gods. In the aftermath, Fenrir's flames will spread across the world until the flames reach the heaven. The earth will sink beneath the ocean, causing steam to rise up, and the stars will vanish. Everything is gone. The gods are dead. Almost. The waters will rescend, while eagles hunt fish from the tops of mountains. But there are survivors. The blind Hodr and gentle Baldur are 2 gods that were in the underworld, returned to reign. Vidar and his brother Vali, Thor's sons Modi and Magni, will also survive. The daughter of the old sun will bring light into the new age. But there are humans as well. Leif and Leifbrasir survive by hiding in the woods known as Hodmimmisholt, which is thought to be tied back to Yggdrasil. There they will be sustained by drinking the morning dew that collects in the woods. They are to be the progenitors of the next age of man. In some tales, they will collect stones found on the shoreline and toss them behind themselves before they turn into people. Among the devastation, the golden Ni-Fatalfa pieces, the Viking version of chess, which the gods used to play, will be found. The fields will grow without being tended for the first few years. That is a dark tale, but there is hope. Would you not agree? Do parts of it sound familiar? A worldwide flood? Doesn't that sound like Noah's Ark, or Uta-Napishtim, and the Epic of Gilgamesh? Yes, floods were a threat in the ancient era, and a common fear of all humanity. In Aztec mythology, there have been 4 worlds before the current one, with the prior ones being destroyed by jaguars, a hurricane, fire rain, and lastly a flood. So it seems worldwide, the idea of a flood wiping away the world to start anew is pretty common. Thematically, it does make sense. You use water to clean away messes, and use water to tend fields. It does make me wonder if there really was some sort of massive flooding which shaped early humanity. Maybe there wasn't the Mediterranean Sea in the earliest point of human history. But no, we have fossil and geological records that tell us that it would already have been there. But there are other similarities with Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Leaf and Leafbrasier hiding in a forest? Doesn't that sound a bit like the Garden of Eden? Yes, perhaps the 2 stories share an older root story. As with the Trojan War, Ragnarök is the culmination of many other stories. We see Loki's children, which were bound, rising up to defeat the gods which shackled them. We see the conflicts with the giants coming to an end. Does the survival of humans even make sense? Shouldn't they all be dead after a worldwide flood? It comes down to a numbers game. It is the same thing you see in all these post-apocalyptic movies, or every natural disaster we see in the real world. A flood destroys a town, but people survive. They find high ground, like the top of a mountain, or up in the branches of the world tree. Yeah, people can find a safe place, get in a boat and outrun the rising water, while avoiding the flames. Not easy, but it is a basic probability. As to how the second generation of humans comes from stones from the shoreline thrown over their shoulders, well, it does mirror back to how humans were first created in Norse myth. Odin and 2 other gods. It varies with the telling. Were walking along the shoreline and found 2 pieces of driftwood, one of ash and the other of elm. The 3 gods then breathed new life into the wood and bestowed the gifts of mental faculties. These pieces of driftwood would then become ask, meaning ash, and embla, which could either be elm or vine depending on the translation. Them hiding and surviving in the woods or world tree does harken back to their origins. But as the stones becoming human, well, most likely, the shoreline is meant as a callback to the origins by Odin's actions. There will be problems with such a limited population. If you only had 2, it would quickly lead to inbreeding depression. By the time you reach grandchildren and great-grandchildren, their odds of survival would plummet and doom humanity most likely. But with other humans, it will ease the burden. The estimate for the lowest possible human population to recover from would be around 1,000, depending on what percentage of the population is related. That is something that I'll need to go deep into if I ever do a full-on video of establishing human populations on other worlds in science fiction. So long as the stone-born people are not clones of Leaf and Leafbrasier, they will quickly rebuild the population. Perhaps there are other survivors which could be found. Regardless, there will be much work in rebuilding society. Just getting basic infrastructure in place will take time, starting with housing and farming. Most likely, this will take a few generations. Yet, if gods and humans survived, won't some of the giants? Most likely, so be careful. But would they be interested in fighting? Are they too exhausted after the devastation? Or will they seek vengeance? Could the survivors put aside their age-old differences to build a better world than before? Yes, but for how long? Why do the fields grow so well, you may ask? Without being tended? Well, floodplains are often used by farmers. The flooding brings an excess of nutrients to the soil, as well as moisture. Once the water ascends, it is the ideal place to plant crops. But like I just said, plant. Normally, you need to plant the seeds and still tend the soil to prevent weeds and damage. But after a disaster of this nature, it would reset the available plants and animals in the area. Remember, this wasn't just a flood, but a massive fire too. This would have destroyed many plants. After wildfires, there is a natural order of ecological succession, and doubly so under these conditions. Normally, things like lichen would be among the first species to inhabit a region. But we got crops, which means most likely outside intervention, namely those from the gods perhaps. And this brings up the major issue with Ragnarök. Despite everything being destroyed and lost, people and gods will begin again once more. This gives an impression of the world not being so bleak and depressing, that even in the worst moments possible, there is life. And this is why I mentioned the game pieces being found. Something simple, but important. They allowed for a form of enjoyment, but something else. While the gold isn't worth anything to them, but it shows them that they can learn from the last world, that there is still pleasure to be had. Finally, all of this was prophesied. Odin and the other Aesir knew what was coming, and sought to prevent it by dealing with Fenrir and Jormungandr. Yet when the time came, they didn't run. They went to face their foes in the end. But as always with prophecies, it is often your actions which bring it about, and that is the flaw in how the gods addressed it. Perhaps they could have prevented much of the event by being more cautious. Brent stumbled forward under the empty sky. He was soaked to the bone, covered in burns. But worst of all, completely alone. Everything had been swept away. His boots trudged through the mud of the old world, when a sound picked at his ears, crying, that of a baby. He rushed towards the sound. Floating among the wreckage of a house was a basket. A tiny baby thrashed about all alone inside, hungry and scared. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Brent prayed as he lifted the child. Together, the two of them set out through the devastation, unsure of what was there. Ragnarök is a dreadful tale, one where everything that happened in all other Norse tales comes together for the collapse of society. Yet, in the end, we see that this is just the next stage of the world, a clean slate to begin again. Thank you for watching, adventurers, and thank you for your support over the year. I have enjoyed making these videos for you. I'll strive to increase my production in this new year. We'll look at more childlike creatures of mythology, trickster deities, beings of dread, and limitations in multiracial cities. But first, we'll look at the neurology of reincarnation. Until then, I'll see you on the roads.